Welcome back to the program. So everybody at this point probably is familiar with the Donald Sterling story. Donald Sterling doesn't like black people, I guess. So he made some very, just flat out rude and racist comments. At least it appears from the audio we heard released by TMZ. Here's the bizarre thing about Mr. Sterling. He appears to be beloved by the left. And so we're being cautioned to tread carefully, and perhaps there's some context that needs to be explored here with Mr. Sterling. And I'm all for exploring the context. But this is not how it would go if somebody who is, say, more beloved on the right were to have made such callous and racist statements, or as I say, apparently racist statements. I don't know how you read these any other way. Bob Parks from Project 21 is on the phone with me right now. Bob is also the blackandright.com blog as well. Bob, you know, it seems like, if he was going to get a Humanitarian of the Year award from the NAACP and he happens to make a couple of racist comments, maybe we should be a little bit more careful. I don't know. Most of the time you just fire guys like that.
Well, you would. And again, you listen to the media and how they're going off. And, I mean, anytime you can get somebody to say something racist, it's going to be full frontal on CNN and Fox News and all of the cable news channels. That's all that they're running with, the racist. Now, like with the Cliven Bundy video, if you chop out just what you like, and I'm not excusing what Donald Sterling said, even though in the privacy of his own home, he had a reasonable expectation of privacy. He just didn't know. It just doesn't sound like he knew he was being recorded. But if you look at some of the things that he said, and you listen to Vanessa Stiviano prodding him on, pushing it, knowing that she's recording him, she knows it, and she's pushing, trying to get these things out. You listen to a few of the clips where he says, black people are fabulous. I love minorities. So she keeps pushing. And there's one thing that he said, among others, there was one thing that he did respond when it came to what really started this whole thing off, and that was the Magic Johnson picture that she took with her and him and then put on Instagram. Donald Sterling said, please don't broadcast this because I don't want to get calls from friends. My question is, who are these friends of Donald Sterling, these hoity-toity Beverly Hills, Bel Air, Hollywood types, who have a problem of Donald Sterling's mistress being put on Instagram because she's hanging out with black guys?
Well, think about this. His mistress is half black, half Hispanic. So how come those same friends aren't bothered by the fact that he's got a mistress who's half black, half Hispanic? But if
you look at her Instagram page, she really highlights the fact that she's Latina. Doesn't make much mention of black. And if you also look at some of those Instagram comments that she writes about herself, she's hashtagging everybody in the media, including publishing houses. Let's also bring into the fact that she's being sued by Mrs. Sterling, Rochelle Sterling, because Rochelle is just tired, apparently, of having this woman who's been with her husband for the last 4 years, who got a $1.8 million condo in Beverly Hills, 4 luxury cars, 2 Bentleys, a Ferrari, and a Range Rover, $500,000 in cash. Well, isn't it funny how this all came out right around the time she's being sued by the wife?
Indeed. There's probably a pretty substantial backstory here. But what we have come to in this culture is racism gotcha. That's what we've come to. So, but again, because Donald Sterling actually enjoys some fandom among the elite Hollywood snobs who pretend they care so much about the plight of the poor black American, he's been given a chance to explain himself. Mr. Bundy wasn't given a chance to explain himself. Darn near nobody else. Don Imus wasn't given a chance to explain himself. Nobody's given a chance to explain themselves unless for some reason there is a group out there that has enough left-wing cachet that we can pause. And maybe he deserves, a fair shake here in terms of taking a look at the entire context. And maybe he doesn't. But the double standard on the racist gotcha is pretty obnoxious at this point. Anything can be. I mean, Paul Ryan was talking about civil unrest and the breakdown of the American family. He didn't even say black people, and he was accused of being racist, and he wasn't given that second chance.
Sure, and let's look at some of these people who are throwing out this faux outrage right now. Snoop Dogg, Charles Barkley. I'm sorry, but I'm sure if you were to put a mic somewhere in a room with Snoop Dogg, you mean to tell me you wouldn't be able to hear him at some point saying something racist against whites?
How about Barack Obama when he described his grandmother as a typical white person?
This is another instance where he selectively interjects himself in a local issue. And another thing that gets me, too, is now the NAACP chapter in Los Angeles is all outraged about you. Do you remember a couple of years ago when they took Hallmark to task because of a card that was celebrating the solar system and all that, and they were talking about black holes?
Yes.
And people from the NAACP LA chapter swore up and down that they heard black whores. Now you're going to tell me that these guys have any credibility at all? And speaking of credibility issues, TMZ Sports, give me a break.
Well, and his mistress. And a mistress who's being sued by the ex-wife. So, but
besides, now she's going to illegally tape, because she did illegally tape him, unless Donald Sterling was stupid enough, as a multi-billionaire real estate guy, he is going to allow himself to be taped saying racist stuff.
Yeah, and because it wasn't broadcast, it was technically on the internet. There's no technical crime that was committed, at least in terms of the FCC. But she may be in violation of another California law. Who knows? No one's talking about that. Look, let's talk about the racism at the drop of a hat. There's real racism that still exists. And I tell you what, I think the random accusations of racism is making it worse. So if you just say, for instance, Paul Ryan, when Paul Ryan's talking about the breakdown of the American family and how devastating that is because it's an important civil institution that keeps America from becoming a tyranny, when he talks about that and he's accused of being racist, he's obviously not being racist. It's that kind of stuff that makes people who are on the receiving end of the accusation behave in ways that they may never have imagined behaving before. But when you're accused of something you didn't do, it starts to make you say, what's going on here? I mean, I actually think that the left wing is trying to rattle the cages of people by making these random accusations of racism. So at some point you say something racist.
Well, it's that, and you look at, for example, just the last racial controversy we had with Cliven Bundy. You had people like Sean Hannity and a whole bunch of other conservatives distance themselves based on a video that was chopped up and then put out there by, guess who? Media Matters. We have people on our side reacting to Media Matters?
Yeah, Media Matters, which the guy who, and I can't think of his name, escapes me right now. George Soros, who funds Media Matters, funded the attacks, the attacks on Cheryl Atkinson, funded the attacks that took down a reporter that was exposing the Obama administration for corruption. But yeah, this is the way it goes. Media Matters will create out of whole cloth accusations of racism, and then when you peel through them, well, it's very much like the attack on Mike Huckabee. This had nothing to do with race, but it was the War on Women attack. He did not talk about women who couldn't control their libido. He didn't suggest that women couldn't. He suggested that the left wing was making it sound like women couldn't. And that's all it took for Mike Huckabee to be accused of being some kind of knuckle-dragging, mouth-breathing sexist pig. He might be, but he's probably not. And Paul Ryan certainly isn't a racist. And I don't know if Clive Bundy is or not. My gosh, he's in the middle of nowhere, Nevada. My best guess is he's not running into a whole bunch of people, from I don't know, Georgia or something like that. He's not exactly a well-traveled man.
Well, I've done a series of side-by-side videos showing the entire clip, but right next to it, it cuts in where, for example, MSNBC might have done the clip that they ran over and over about Mike Huckabee, or the same thing that they did with Ted Cruz.
Or George Zimmerman.
And the same thing with Cliven Bundy. It's the selective editing that these people do and then run on it as a news story in itself. This whole thing with Donald Sterling is abhorrent if you don't put it in the full context. And I know a lot of people who are usually on the defensive, and sometimes rightfully so, use the whole taken out of context thing. But when it's done deliberately, and when you look at this woman, when you listen to the entire tape, and she's just such a whiny little you-know-what, pushing him, and he even said several times, it sounds like, almost like elder abuse, where he's just saying, why are you doing this?
You know,
why do you keep pushing?
But look at we're not supposed to say this, right? How old is this woman? How old is she? Late 20s, early 30s?
28.
28, maybe? Mm-hmm. How old is Donald Sterling? I mean, please.
78.
There's something about gold and shovels, you know?
No, she was into it for the love.
Right on. Whatever, honey. I'm sure. Right? It's for the love. She's in it for the cash. And you do have to question somebody's motivation when they're in it for the cash. That said, this doesn't end because, this seems to be... it's kind of like the new reality show. We just go out and try to see if we can find somebody saying something that's ever so... I remember once, Bob, when Herman Cain was on my program, and I introduced him, I'm not kidding you, as a dark horse presidential candidate. What are you supposed to happen to me the next day?
I'm surprised it took that long.
I know, and I'm thinking... Now I was stunned. I was friends with Herman Cain. But in any case, that's how it happens. So they just sit and they wait. And if you say something just ever so slightly, malleable enough that it can be used as an attack, the left wing will use it as an attack. Hey, I appreciate... Go ahead.
But you could also be the Senate Minority Leader and talking about the new President of the United States, this light-skinned Negro who uses his Negro dialect whenever he wants to. He can turn it on and off. You can get away with that if you are the right political, party.
Right. That's exactly correct. As long as you are of the correct political stripe, then have at it. Go crazy. Hey, Bob Parks, where can people find you online?
You can come to my website, which is black-and-right.com, and also a member of Project 21.
And Project 21, so you can find on conservativeblog.com, black-and-right.com. Bob Parks, thank you very much for the time.
Thanks, Vicki.
I appreciate it. We'll be right back.